Hey guys, sorry for the delay. We're running a little late today. Grindhead had a lot to catch up on because he's been off for a little while. So, just as a heads up, I've got major thunderstorms going on, so I might wink out, but Will has the con. So, we'll be running as best we can today. So, buckle up. Hey everybody, I'm Largo. This is the Lair, and today we are going to be talking about Kerak and the Garrison, and one of my personal favorites, and hopefully one of yours too. I know it's one of the favorites of my co-host, Will. Let's bring him on and see what he's got to say about it.
Hey, Jim, how are you? Yeah,
I'm
Kerak
good.
is my favorite bad guy, and Bone Collector is really cool, but Kerak is a more complicated character. He's not, just straight up evil. And we're going to see in the slides to follow
Yeah,
why I like him.
he's more nuanced, definitely, and in my opinion, he's not a villain, and we'll get into that as well. But let's start off with my idea of what is going on in New Colonia right now. So let's see what the Garrison does when they're recruiting.
Nice. Where do I sign up?
That's it. New Colonia is calling. Uh, I would definitely see whatever's going on in the New Colonia territories. When they're recruiting, they're probably doing something like this on social media or, one form or another, using propaganda and inspiring people to sign up, as well as some of the conscripted soldiers that they're bringing in. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when we get to Bill Nedro's excellent novel, Broken Alliances. When we get to the feature film, we're going to be seeing a lot of how the Garrison is bringing people into the fold. So, but today, let's start with where we are with Series 1 Kerak. That's where it all began. So, when we first met Action Force, Kerak was Series 1. He was 0105 of the original set, and quite a handsome devil. Really good head sculpt. He's got the helmet. He's got the attitude, and he's pointing that finger saying, "You, I want you for the Garrison Cavalry." Now we're going to go through what was originally posted as his information during Series 1. We do know already that in Bill Nedro's novel there are some adjustments to the character of both Kerak and Bone Collector. So they will have name changes. A few other minor details will change, and we'll address that when we get to the novel. So right now we're just going over everything as it is up to the point of the novel, if that makes sense. So everything we're going over here came from mission files and from the combat profile on the back of the box. So according to that information, codename Kerak, he is Reginald D. Richards. His primary MOS is 11 Alpha Infantry. His secondary skill is 37 Alpha, which is Psychological Operations Officer, and that will become important to know. We'll go into that a little bit. He's from Midland, Texas. He has the rank of Colonel, and he is affiliated with the Garrison. And here we have his combat profile. Again, a lot of information here, a lot of exposition, and we'll break it down as best we can as we go through this.
Yeah.
I love that picture. That's a great image. I wonder who drew that one. I'll have to look in the comics and see.
Oh, yeah.
So the image you see in the background there is Kerak Castle, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So Kerak leads the Garrison as a medieval army waging an all-out war of his own and will kill anyone who gets in his way.
Yeah. It says Reginald Richards was a career Army officer who enlisted not because of a desire to serve his country, but rather because of his own indignation towards his family. Richard grew up in a wealthy home afforded to him by his family's investment in control of a sizable oil refinery in Texas. Richards felt slighted by his family and believed that he was being left out of the family inheritance. So rather than confront them directly, he unexpectedly enlisted in the Army.
So that's kind of an interesting point. He comes from money. He comes from a very wealthy and influential family in Texas. Nobody expected him to go career Army, but he struck out on his own path. Kerak uses the same psychological warfare tactics that he learned in the Army in order to strike fear into the hearts and minds of his enemies and coerce them into showing their hand and letting him have what was in it all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's pretty handy. So,
yeah, it says his college degree guaranteed him a slot at officer candidate school, where he graduated with top honors. Not satisfied with leading an infantry platoon, Richard pursued a secondary MOS, this time psychological operations. His career change took his superiors by surprise, much like his enlistment did with his family. Richard learned early on how not to leave a trail and how to outthink his opponents before killing them. His brutal tactics earned him a reputation in combat, but he didn't stop there, as he used his cunning and imagination to create havoc with his foes back home as well. So he really got into, so he pursued the psychological operations, and he was really good at it. He really leaned into it, so.
One thing we definitely find from reading the mission files and what information we do have about Kerak, he is fiercely intelligent, tactical minded, and will use anything and everything to the advantage of whatever objective he's trying to reach. And he does it very well. So let's talk about what a 37 Alpha is. In the Army, that is a psychological operations officer, known as PSYOP for short. PSYOP officers are assessed and selected for their intellect, critical and analytical thinking skills, their adaptability, and mental resilience. They analyze operational environments, physical targets, and target audiences. They advise on psychological effects, plan influence options, develop actions and messages targeting psychological vulnerabilities, and deliver optimally timed actions and messages, and assess influence effectiveness. Now, that alphabet soup there is the actual write-up from the U.S. Army. In a nutshell, it is pretty much what their motto says on their crest there: persuade, change, and influence. They're doing their best to gather intel on the enemy and to demoralize them if possible, not necessarily go into a direct combat if it's not necessary, but use propaganda and other tactics to dissuade them from wanting to fight in the first place. It's very effective, and it has been part of warfare since time immemorial. It's probably more prevalent in our recent history when you look at the propaganda from World War II, whether it was on the Allied side, talking about the Germans and the Japanese, or on the Japanese or German side, talking about the Americans. They did pamphlets, they did all kinds of political cartoons. They were looking for ways to demonize the enemy so that they're not fighting an equal, they're fighting someone and showing that their cause is just. That's a big part of psychological warfare. And it has only become more sophisticated as time has gone on. So, again, how the Army describes PSYOPs. PSYOPs can encourage popular discontent with the opposition's leadership, and by combining persuasion with a credible threat, degrade an adversary's ability to conduct or sustain military operations. They can also disrupt, confuse, and protract the adversary's decision-making process, undermining command and control. When properly employed, PSYOP have the potential to save lives of friendly or enemy forces by reducing the adversary's will to fight. That's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I think we've all experienced some form of this in the media, or in our lifetime. We've seen something like this go down.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the old Marine commercials when I was a kid. They had the few, the proud, join the Marines. And the Navy had a couple of, great commercials for recruiting, and they really hyped the idea of, it's very heroic and you're like a knight in shining armor.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, they had like the guy with the sword.
And
the lightning coming down. And
Oh, yeah. And those Marine dress blues looking sharp. And it's part of the same type of PSYOP mission. I mean, obviously, it's not always something that you're using in a negative way. They use this for recruiting as well as they do for detracting against an enemy. So a lot of different references out there to look at. The interesting thing I see here is the more we understand about PSYOPs and what their mission is, I think we get a better insight into who Kerak is and how he operates in New Colonia. So based on that,
as a psychological operations officer, Kerak is a master of persuasion and influence, and an expert in political trends, cultural trends, and attitudes of the people in any given area of operation. Kerak utilizes his understanding of social psychology and individual and group dynamics to influence individuals, groups, and populations. So, what this is saying is not only is he using the PSYOPs to demoralize the enemy, he's also using it to inspire those who ally with him. So it's not that he's just, propaganda against the enemy. It's an uplifting thing. And as you see in this interaction here from the comic, without reading the whole thing, he's talking to this politician who maybe is misunderstanding his position in it. And he's giving him kind of a lesson about where they stand.
Yeah, where are we in the pecking order? So this senator from New Colonia is trying to I don't know if he's trying to,
right? I think he's
right.
He's like,
he's
who
like,
authorized you to make a decision? And
exactly.
Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is from Mission Files number 5. Highly recommend you read this one. It's a key pivotal issue, not only for Kerak, but also for Condor. And we've touched on it when we went over Condor's combat profile a while back. But here you see the quiet, casual strength of Kerak. He's not raising his voice. He's not even threatening. He has his back turned to the senator for much of this conversation, but he lets him know very succinctly, you're in charge. You can run the government. I don't care. But you need me. You need my garrison. You need what we provide. We are the stop gap. We're the wall between you and everything out there. So let me do what I need to do. Don't question me. Don't get in my way. And when I ask for something, give it to me so I can do my job. And we'll get along fine. And he puts this all across without ever making any kind of veiled threat, but letting him know very clearly, military decisions are mine alone, period. And he gets what he wants. So when the United States fractured, New Colonia sought out Richards based on his exemplary yet vicious military record. Richards took up the mantle of Kerak and led the garrison as a medieval army waging an all-out war of his own and to kill anyone who got in his way. Kerak is a creation. It is a persona that this colonel created to inspire the troops, to put fear into his enemies, and to rally the garrison. And it works, and it works well. And we'll see some examples of that as we move along here.
Yeah.
One of the just little details that were noted in issue 5 of the mission files is the Order of Saint Adjutor. I believe I'm saying that correctly. I found a statue of the saint, and basically there was a order of knights that were under this particular crusader. He was a crusading knight before he became a saint. He had a group like the Garrison, and they were the stopgap in a particular region of the world between what was going on in the Crusader states and the infidels or the invading army or whatever you want to call them at that point. And so using that as an example, he's explaining to the senator and anyone else that he's talking to about this particular period of time. There's a parallel. What was happening in the 1200s during that wartime, we're seeing it again. History is repeating itself, and my garrison is going to be that force that stands and protects and does what's needed to be done. You may not like us, but you need us.
Yeah.
So
although their tactics may have been brutal at times, they were necessary in some people's opinion. And that's what Kerak's putting across now. Also, his garrison cavalry, they are not just soldiers, they are knights, they are crusaders, they are modern day equivalents of these, righteous warriors.
absolutely. And he uses his knowledge of military history and psyops propaganda to position himself and his garrison as the crusading force of knights that they are. So how a garrison trooper or cavalry member thinks of themselves is probably a little bit different than what a run-of-the-mill Republic Guard would consider himself. Their training is to elevate themselves to a knighthood. So they're not just thugs. They're well-trained, well-seasoned officers and soldiers that believe in this righteous call that Kerak has put before them.
Yeah.
They see themselves
the United
as
States
knights.
has crumbled. There's chaos all around you. You are what, you are needed to bring us back to order. And
it's a brilliant strategy, and it seems to be working very well for New Colonia because they are expanding at a pretty good rate. So he uses the imagery of knighthood, and you can see we've pulled an image here, very heroic, very powerful, and this is the reference that he uses for creating his garrison. And you can see the similarities when you look at the figure of the way the helm is done. It's modern military tech, but the helm, the front shield is definitely inspired by a medieval knight.
yeah,
And it's very effective in
it's a really cool design, and I think
yeah.
it's underrated. I think in sense of style, Garrison Cavalry is really cool, and I think they're overshadowed maybe by the sci-fi tech and flashiness of the Swarm. But let's just imagine they didn't exist. I really think that these baddies, even though they're not, maybe they are, but it's okay.
Well, they are a separate faction coming at
or the
a
opposing
particular
force
objective, an opposing force.
Yes.
That's a fair way to put it.
But I think it's under underappreciated, in my opinion. I just feel like that
I would
blend
agree.
of modern soldier with the aesthetic of a knight is
Mhm.
really cool and something that I haven't seen done before.
I have a feeling that Bobby is saving some goodies for the Garrison for later on, either this year or next. We know he's got some new designs coming. We have the Garrison Cavalry soldier. We have one version. I'm guessing there will be another one to come, at least one. We've seen a lot of love for the Swarm. We've seen a lot of love for Steel Brigade and the Action Force itself. The Garrison Cavalry, I bet, is going to have some new goodies coming. So we'll keep an eye out. But they are my favorite of the factions, with the exception of Steel Brigade. I love the color scheme. I love the design. I love the knight elements. It's cool.
It really is.
So, again, we're looking at what kind of propaganda would Kerak use. He would question your worth. Are you worthy? Are you good enough to be part of my garrison? Do you belong?
The world around us crumbled because of, greed, selfishness, petty disputes, things like that. We saw the collapse of the world. We need the worthy to bring back an ideal United States or whatever, new republic that not only is what we used to have, but better, filled with the righteous, the good people.
Absolutely. And to a point, I believe Kerak believes what he is promoting. He does believe in the need to reunify in a new republic. Maybe not exactly what the United States was, but something similar, something more pure, maybe something that goes through the fires of this rebellion and breakup and comes back together and is forged into something better than what it was. And that passion drives the decisions he makes, his reason for aligning with New Colonia in the first place, and his use of New Colonia's expansion, their military strength, to meet an objective that he has, regardless of what the politicians may think. So it'll be interesting to see how that's going to play out. But Kerak wants you for the garrison. And here's a couple of examples. I did a little custom lieutenant for my garrison.
I think he fits right in.
Yeah. I'm having fun with them. They're really a cool faction. And like I said, I'm definitely excited to see what new stuff we get to add to the garrison. So looking at what the garrison is, at least how they see themselves, Kerak and his garrison are the preeminent military machine in New Colonia. So of the republics that were all disbanded, the ones that have come together and become New Colonia, the garrison protects, defends, and they have a very unique mission. Yeah. They are the defenders of freedom. In their mind, they are the good guys. Absolutely. No question about it. They will do whatever it takes to return to the glory of what New Colonia represents. They see themselves as patriots of a new and better version of what came before. And I would imagine some of them are probably zealous. That could be a good thing. There could be something terribly, terribly horrific. So we see here an example of the map as it was in the original printing of the mission files. There may be some changes to this as the lore expands because New Colonia continues to gain new territory. But at this point, they've got a good portion of the map under their jurisdiction. And it's not all connected yet, but they're working on it. I find it curious. They've even encroached down beyond the traditional borders of the United States and have taken over part of Baja, Mexico.
Yeah, I see that.
A good chunk of Texas, but not the whole state. As we know, there are some resistance factions in Texas that are part of Action Force. And so I think that's what's keeping New Colonia at bay. But those borders are fluctuating. And the political scene here is curious. We don't have all the details. We do get some better glimpses in the novel, which we'll get into. But this just gives you kind of a snapshot of where things are. The states that are in the neutral colors are independents. The darker colored ones with the colonial flag are, of course, New Colonia. So just kind of give you that to keep in the back of your head while you're figuring out how this all plays out. So the Garrison, as we understand it at this point, as New Colonia is swallowed up, the Republic, each Republic it swallows up, it gains each military force, bringing them together into one massive unit. So whatever National Guard or bases for active duty military were in these individual states before they became republics, they were kind of left on their own with no centralized government to lead them, no command. So when New Colonia comes in and takes over, they absorb troops and military and put them into the Garrison under Kerak's leadership. The Garrison carries out their orders, bringing death and destruction to those republics willing to stand up against New Colonia. Kerak rages into war, leading his soldiers as a cavalry of medieval knights, as we've mentioned before. So this, I think, it's part of that dynamic where New Colonia is expanding. They have a holy mission, for lack of a better term, looking at their crusader influences. It's terrifying for some of these independent republics, which makes them reach out to the Swarm. And the Swarm's like, you want some help against these New Colonia radicals?
Yeah.
We've got the tech, we've got the manpower, we can help. So they come in their bright yellow and silver as saviors, protecting against this encroaching New Colonia. And then the people start realizing how much that protection costs. And Action Force is kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, you know? And it was mentioned that it seemed that the territories taken over by or protected by the Swarm, you don't see New Colonia encroaching on those too much. But we don't know it's because they have some kind of agreement, if New Colonia just doesn't want to go up against the Swarm at this point. But I do feel that eventually it's going to come to a head where, you know, the Garrison, I think right now, Kerak is more, it's kind of like when you play those like strategy games, you're kind of in the beginning stages. You don't want direct combat. You want to maybe acquire resources and territories, as many as you can before you have to start losing troops and moving things around and defending. I think he's in that stage of this game. And so if a roadblock appears, he just, okay, we'll just go around that for now, but we'll keep an eye on that. And as the map spreads, we're going to see things get tightened up because
there's a curious détente. There's a curious almost an unacknowledged agreement between the Swarm and New Colonia. It's like, if you're protecting a territory, we're not going to push too far into that unless there's something we really want. Maybe we'll go into conflict, but otherwise, let's just kind of carve up the map as we're going. There's something going on behind the scenes. We don't know all the details yet, but as we get into Broken Alliances, we might find out more. Here's another excellent picture of the Kerak first edition and his box side there with that great art. Really awesome figure. And he will be coming out in the Special Deployment Series soon with some slight variants. But overall, if you missed him the first time, he's coming around again soon. So watch for that. And, of course, the Garrison Cavalry. Great design, great color scheme, updated weaponry, and they definitely have a very intimidating stance on the battlefield and on your shelf. So highly recommend.
My personal favorite.
Yeah, I know you guys have probably been over these before. The metal visor will flip up, and it is just a standard battle helmet that it's attached to. So they're carrying modern gear. They just have that particular metal face shield that gives them kind of a unifying look. And of course, they have the New Colonia flag and the Garrison symbol on their body armor. So, very cool stuff.
I like.
And I've seen a lot of cool customs out there. People have really taken to this particular figure, and they're looking for ways to make it their own. Now, this is something we brought up. Well, I did when I talked with Zazel about Sergeant Slaughter, and you'll see that when we get to the Sergeant Slaughter episode. Is there bad blood between Kerak and the Sarge? And I raised that question because of what happens here in mission file number 4.
Yeah.
As soon as the Sarge makes eye contact with Kerak on the field, he goes for him. He has a serious hate on for this guy, and I don't know if it's part of this particular mission or if there's something, maybe there's some history here. Speculation on my part.
He spears him right through through the window, right out of there. And Kerak looks like a pretty big and intimidating guy, but in Sarge, even though he had that leg brace in the beginning of the issue, he takes no.
Oh,
he
yeah,
doesn't care at all. He throws all caution to the wind, and he just goes right after this guy.
The passion with which he goes after specifically Kerak makes me think these guys have a history. They're both relatively similar age. They both had a lot of training in the same parts of the military.
Could be
They've
Sarge
probably
knows his tactics or seen some of the things that could occur,
Yeah, they may have rubbed elbows in the past, but there's something here. We just don't know what it is yet. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Oh yeah, what a just an action packed and just what you don't expect. And that I think he knocks Kerak out, and Kerak is moved by his soldiers, and they win the day. But and I'm sure Kerak's not used to getting tossed around like a little girl. So
no, if there wasn't if there wasn't bad blood before, there is now, because I'm sure Kerak's wanting some payback for that action from the Sarge. This is a beautiful cover. This is the alternate cover for Mission File 5, and I totally love it. It's very iconic. I believe this was done by Alex Sanchez, but don't quote me. I'd have to double check the issue.
I think you're
fantastic, fantastic artwork, and very evocative of the kind of shock and awe tactics that Kerak would use on the battlefield. He's riding to war. He is bringing hell with him. You don't want to be in his path. So beautiful stuff. From this, there's 2 key points I want to bring up from the issue. Again, read it for yourself. It's very nuanced. You probably need to read it more than once to catch everything. But one of the main points that we've talked about this, we talked about Bone Collector. This scene where he's talking to one of his cavalry officers. The way he talks with his officers, I really like that they really address the idea that they have, all military bearing a reverence for him as their colonel. But he makes it very clear. You never be afraid to ask. If you have questions, you come to me. I'm here to teach. I'm here to lead. And he leads from the front. He is very much a leader who is in charge. And they wonder if they'll be seeing Commander Arthur. And they're referring to, of course, the Bone Collector. And Kerak is very clear on this mission, specifically because it has a high profile. Happened to look and be known that it was executed righteously. So we know there's an animosity between him and the Bone Collector. He uses the Bone Collector to get dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Wait, that's a song. Anyway, Bone Collector is a blunt instrument that is used for particular missions, but Kerak himself doesn't particularly like the dishonorable way things are done by him. So he uses him surgically. But he has a moral compass, much like Condor. He has a way that the war should be conducted.
And this also goes into his psyops, because he said, whatever happens after this, I at least want it to be said that we began this righteously. So, he doesn't want any bad publicity, basically, because Bone Collector just goes in there and massacres people. He wants to keep that
perception.
That perception of of righteous, crusading, in the public's eye.
Absolutely. And the other point I wanted to bring up is from later in the issue. Here at the end of the mission, we realize Kerak has outthought pretty much everybody. Action Force was concerned that a particular weapon was going to fall into enemy hands, and they went there to make sure that didn't happen. Kerak went pretty much with the same idea. And so when the Garrison troops come to him and say, I'm sorry, we failed, we didn't meet the objective, he's like, but you did. I didn't care about this particular weapon. I didn't want it. I just wanted to make sure no other idiot had it and could use it against us. So mission is accomplished. Whether Action Force did it for us or we did it, it's done. I got what I wanted. And I think he knew that going into it. He had a definite plan. It's like either my forces are going to prevail or I'm going to manipulate Action Force into doing what I want them to do, which is destroy these weapons and make sure nobody
I think in the beginning of the issue, other people are also questioning why he's going for that objective. And Condor
there's a lot of misdirection too.
Yeah, and Condor figures it out, and they rush to the scene and heroically save the day, but only to find out at the end of the issue that Kerak it's almost like in chess, you move a piece and make someone think you're going in that direction, but the whole time you're coming around this way to do what you wanted to do. Almost making his adversary do his work for him.
Yes.
Kind of genius.
He took some minimal losses. Some equipment was damaged. Some troops were probably killed, but he kept it very minimal because, again, it was a very strategic and surgical strike. He knew exactly what he wanted to get done, and he got it done. How he got done it kind of baffled some of his troops, but it was handled. So again, it goes to that deeper deviousness, if you will, or just very tactical thinking of Kerak, which makes him a very dangerous adversary
and a very interesting enemy. He's an interesting leader. Like I said, his methods I may not agree with everything he does, but I understand why he's doing it. And I know that there's more to him than just, so if he does something, I know there was a reason why, and it keeps you thinking. So I really like him as a leader.
And it might be unpopular to say, but I can draw some parallels between the way he conducts himself on the battlefield and the way Condor conducts himself on the battlefield. Absolutely. They're both very specialized, very tactical, and they will do whatever needs to get done in the most efficient way, sometimes the bloodiest way. But, there's definitely, I can see some similarities that the two men may not even like that there are similarities there, but they're there nonetheless. So curious. So some people have already realized this. Bobby's talked about it. We just wanted to point out some of the inspirations and the origins of the concept of the character of Kerak. First and foremost, the name. What is Kerak? Kerak is a place. Yeah. Kerak is a castle, a large medieval castle located in Al-Kerak, Jordan. Kerak Castle has historically been used to protect the assets of the Crusader states in the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem. One of the most famous battles of that time period was the Siege of Kerak in 1183. It was an attack on the particular castle itself by the forces of Saladin. And in the motion picture Kingdom of Heaven, which many of you guys may have already seen, if you haven't, I recommend it. It's a good one. It contains a fictional portrayal of this particular siege of Kerak Castle. And as you can see from the images here, they recreated it digitally for the film, and you can see what Kerak would have looked like in its heyday. And then the other picture is a modern picture of the ruins of where Kerak Castle was, pretty much just down to the foundations now.
Yeah, but massive. I mean, it's a city. It's a castle and a city. It's huge.
Well, it is a fortress, and it is designed as a stop point, and it was used that way. And I think that definitely influences the reason why Richards chose Kerak as his namesake. And again, here's another image of the Crusader Knights from Kingdom of Heaven, and that's Castle Kerak in the background.
And we know Bobby's a big fan of this movie, so I think he's mentioned it in several
I think
streams.
he actually he has a reproduction sword from the film too that's pretty awesome. The other film was Reign of Fire. And when you look at Matthew McConaughey, all right. When he plays Denton Van Zandt, the character is very much different from Kerak, but the persona, the look, there's a definite inspiration there, especially when you see this image.
Yep.
Does that look familiar?
When he came rolling in that movie, and they're like,
"Oh yeah."
Well, what do they say? They're like, Americans or something. They're disappointed.
Exactly. Ironically, he's on a British battle tank. This is the FV 4201 Chieftain, which was a main battle tank for the United Kingdom from the 60s through the 90s. And it is a very impressive and intimidating piece of armory to bring on to the battlefield.
Sure.
When they roll in, it's impressive.
Yeah, because in the movie, they were all hunkering down and trying to merely survive. And then here comes this cowboy riding a tank, and they are hunting, the dragon. So, it's just, he comes in big, larger than life.
It's a fun movie. Characters. Yeah.
Aesthetically inspired by, but I don't think the characters are the same.
No. Yeah. Van Zandt is nothing like Kerak in his caricature or how he is portrayed. It's just the look, the jacket, the bald head,
just a cool
the beard.
Look. Yeah,
very cool look. But when you see him on that tank and then you look at that cover, I'm definitely seeing a similarity there. But it's just superficial. But it's worth pointing out. And that pretty much, folks, is what we've got for Kerak and the Garrison at this point.
Yeah.
And again, highly recommend the mission file number 5 specifically to get this better insight into Kerak. And
absolutely love Kerak. I think there's just so much to him, so much more than the average or things we've seen in the past when a leader or an enemy leader is usually not this layered or interesting in the fact that one, he's going to do things that you could kind of relate to, and he believes what he's doing is righteous, so that also makes him an interesting character. Two, he's not a buffoon, he's a badass. So I like him. I think as far as modern characters in this type of setting, he's absolutely my favorite.
Yeah, the aesthetics of the figure are just awesome.
He looks like a badass, but
he is a badass.
He's also thinking. He's not just a mad beast. He's not going to just run on the field. And other than getting slapped around by Sarge, which
was unexpected.
But I think the Sarge comes charging at any one of us from going down. So
he's got his boomstick. He's got his axe. He is there to scare people on the battlefield, and with that, especially with that helm. And even without the helm, he's pretty intimidating just by himself. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the reissue to see what variants there are. But I'm very happy I was able to get one when they first came out. And,
I can't wait.
It's a very cool figure, very imposing. And my Kerak has a mutt. I took the dog from the Aliens 3.
Yep.
And that's his good time boy. Hangs out with him on the. Gotta have a dog.
Yeah.
Bobby, we need dogs. We need the dogs in the action force. But I'm having a lot of fun with the troops. I'm having a lot of fun with the lore, and I like Kerak. I like the Garrison. I want to see.
I think they're, like I said, underrated. I do like the Swarm, but I think as far as something to really get into, and I just feel like I don't know what they're going to do next. They're not predictable, and I'd love to see maybe in the future, Condor and Kerak's kind of ideals lining up. I feel like there was a bigger force out there that they may have to
Deal with.
deal with. Yeah.
Because the swarm is a faceless enemy. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Because
designed
I
that
feel
way.
like, people may not agree with New Colonia or this ideal of going back to a better time. I also think, and Condor and Action Force seems to be fighting for people's choice to make that decision for themselves. They're not trying to force a government on them. They're trying to ensure that people who want to remain independent can and aren't getting just taken over. But I feel like the swarm and whoever controls them just wants everyone to serve, be assimilated and serve. And I think for that reason, we're going to see some, that they're the bigger threat to the way of life.
I would
Because we know
agree.
and what happened in the United States might just be the kind of the lab, the testing place for the rest of the world. So as the world looks on from what happened to the United States, this plan may be enacted in other places.
With the exception of a few hints of what's going on in the UK and Australia because of certain characters that have come into the Action Force, we don't really know what's going on in the larger world at this point. And I would be very surprised if the swarm's appetites were just on the continental U.S. I'm sure they have global ambitions. We also have Crimson Shadow Technologies looming in the background, and we don't know how they're affiliated with everything. Are they the ones pulling the strings behind the swarm? We don't know. We know the swarm have definitely bought armament from them, but I think so has New Colonia. Yeah, I think everybody has pretty much bought armor.
Yeah, I think they're kind of they own pretty much everything. So even if you did it unknowingly, your technology is linked to them somehow because they've managed to go in there and take over.
So how all that ties in is going to be interesting to see. But I think that Garrison and Kerak have more in common with Action Force than they do with the Swarm. And I think we'll see how that plays out. It's going to be interesting. So each faction, from their point of view, is the most righteous. But that doesn't, that's kind of true to life in some cases.
It really is. And I really like it. Like, that he didn't just make them, bad guys,
Yeah, and, there's no black hats and white hats here. There's a lot of shades of gray. Yeah. Intentionally. I mean, they do wear gray fatigues. So
and it makes them just that much more interesting, which keeps me engaged. So I really like it. You really like it. Let's find out what those two live slackers and the live chat thinks about the Garrison and Kerak.
All right. I will see you on the other side.
This way or that way? Okay. I'll go
exit stage that way.
All right. I'll see you later.
Right. Bye. Unmute my mic. We are now in the live portion. Let me bring my co-pilot aboard. Hey, Will.
Hey, I made it. I made it to the other side. How's it going?
Whew, it's getting there. I'm having some inclement weather, so if I wink out, it's on Will. But so far, so good. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. Busy day today. Definitely having a lot of comments going through. Yeah, everyone says we're the good guys. Absolutely. Bjorn, of course, wants a big cat in Action Force. I can't argue with that. Yeah. And the live guys are odd. Absolutely.
They really are.
With that yeah. Hey, long time no see. So I make no bones about it. Kerak is definitely one of my favorite characters. He's very complicated, as it's been noted by Bjorn and others. He's nuanced. He's cool. He's not a bad guy. He is very driven and has a mission. Maybe he doesn't share all of his thoughts with his New Colonia allies, but he's got a plan. And how he bumps heads with Action Force will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's probably one of the, I guess, more or less clearly, opposing forces, that we've seen in a long time. And I love it. I'm just really excited to share it with you guys. And I gotta say, just one thing I noticed about this chat was, I don't know if it's because we're talking about Kerak and he's such a popular character, but you know, I really appreciate everyone's comments and participation in this stream. I feel like we've got more participation than wants to know more
Don't
about those
jump ahead,
Bavarians.
Bjorn.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to
Then
know
we
more
have
about those guys.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. So Carrick was the big kind of other than Sergeant Slaughter, which is the next episode because he's a big character. But I really feel like Carrick and Condor were the key players in this series, and what a great way to start it.
Yeah. Short barrel or an AK as a primary weapon, maybe. They've certainly got the weaponry between all the different weapon packs and the molds that we've gotten. The Mark II design stuff that has been done for Valiverse is exemplary. So I'm not sure what the Kerak variant will come with, but even if he doesn't come with the weapon you flavor, you prefer, there's plenty to choose from. So,
Do you remember the movie? This is just some inside information that I've been given that I'm going to share with you. There was a movie called Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm going Commando
that?
right now.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, there was a character, the enemy in that one. He wears like a see-through chainmail shirt. I don't know if you remember. He's the bad
that has
guy
to
in it.
chafe the nipples a little bit, I would think.
Yeah, from what I heard, though, that's what they're gonna. Carrick's gonna be sporting a chainmail wife beater in the next one with his nip sticking out. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Ouch. Yeah. That. Well, I mean, you give the people what they want. That's all I got to say. I need to have someone make a paratrooper carbine and head sculpt for the. Oh, that would be cool. And Action Force, probably a Delta Trooper, be a good base to start with. Just that'd be cool to see what you come up with. I'm liking that idea. And
Bennett, loot up some steam. Yeah.
That's the one.
Bennett. Yep, that's right. It's going to be the Bennett exclusive. It's a
Commando, the movie that reminds us to look where we are pointing the RPG.
That's
Sound
right.
advice from the Epic Badger. Anywho, let's see where we are with the poll for the Corpsman or Merc. Take a look up here. As it stands right now, we have 20 votes. Booster, Painkiller, and Stretch were the top 3 code names, and Painkiller seems to be taking a great lead. We'll pop him back up here for people to remember. The handsome lad with the curly hair. And for those who didn't catch the Swarm episode, just to remind you guys, for the Navy and the Marines, it is the hospital corpsman that goes into the field. They are loosely the equivalent of an Army medic for the Marines. And when boots are on the ground, corpsman is there. So that's why I chose to go with the corpsman for our Merc group. He's former active duty, probably went and became an EMT, and then now he is standing in the ruins of the United States and doing his best to help out where he can. And so he has decided to become a spare parts mercenary. And so I had a lot of great name ideas, and the top 3 were Booster, Painkiller, and Stretch. So when we finish up here, we will take a look. And he does kind of have a little bit of a Justin Timberlake look going on. That's true.
I was thinking Bjorn Jorgensen when he first cut his hair, but maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
Not everyone knows what he looks like. So.
Bjorn likes Stretch. Yeah, Stretch isn't bad. Yeah, all of the name suggestions were good, and we really appreciate you guys participating in that. Axion Figs, good to see you.
How you doing?
Be getting with him in the near future for some future episodes. That's going to be cool. And let's see what else we got going on here.
Oh, we almost forgot.
We did. We were going to do a movie pick.
That's right.
Again,
who's going to play him in the movie?
Exactly.
Who could it be?
Kerak is definitely going to be some difficult shoes to fill. So Will and I put our heads together, and this is who we chose. Let's see what you guys think. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who else? He's got the build. He's got the look. He is an actor who knows his way around firearms and combat. So I think he'd make an excellent Kerak. What do you
Can you
guys?
pull up the intellectual portion of it, though? That's the maybe.
I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a pretty smart fella.
What do you guys think? Oh, Eddie likes it. All right.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wonderful. Oh, he's just checking in with. Pericles thinks it's a good idea, right? Yeah, he's a great choice.
Indeed.
Excellent. That's great. Good.
I don't know how deep the Valaverse pockets are to afford someone of his stature, but we'll see. No idea who is actually being cast, but in our headcanon, I think Stone Cold would be an excellent choice. Poor relationship, family, does their own thing. People fear them for their potential, smart and dangerous. So just hire a cat. Yeah, okay. And Bjorn says he can dig it. Groovy.
Nice. All right. Well, fingers crossed. Let's see. I can't wait to find out who's playing who in the movie or get any movie news because that's really exciting. I'm really hoping that's going to be something they bring up at Joe Fest or Valicon.
He's been tight-lipped. Hopefully, when you guys go to Valicon, there will be some reveals. We don't know yet, but coming soon. Bjorn, how many days is it, buddy? I know you're counting, but Joe Fest / Valicon is right around the corner. And we will be there. Well, two of us. Bjorn and Will will be there. I'll be here minding the dogs, but we'll put something together. And so, let's see what else we got going on in the comments here. Looks like
54.
Jimmy Salzberg says Judd Nelson looks like Kerak in recent picks. I haven't seen a recent pick of Judd Nelson. That could work.
Smoke up, Johnny. All right.
A bald Ray Stevenson would make a great Kerak also. Cool. Very interesting. And thank you, Mr. Wonderful. Glad you dropped in. Glad you're enjoying exploring the lore with us. That's cool, man. So,
as Series 1 winds down, what do we have in store? We have one character left for Series 1.
We do.
The Sarge.
You want to show a teaser? I got a teaser.
Oh, yeah.
We can tease them.
See that.
So
Nice.
the Sarge is coming. He will be May Day, May 1st, with special guest Zazel from Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse. Will
You're
be coming
not going to want to
explore
miss
the
this
lore.
one, folks.
No,
Definitely
don't miss
tune
any of
in.
it. It's all good. So after we have covered the Sarge, we will have covered all of Series 1. And to celebrate, we're going to get together with some special guests and recap all of the core figures for Series 1 and Mission Files 1 through 5, which cover the Series 1 figures. And I'm not even going to say, but stay tuned because you'll want to see who shows up here in the lair to talk. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zazel was the only choice other than the Sarge himself. But, you know, he's a busy guy. So we got his best friend. And Zazel did a great job. So looking forward to seeing that one. When a moose runs into Sarge, it has to brace for impact. I'm seeing some Chuck Norris parallels here. It's possible. All right, kids, we're over an hour, and I think we did a good job today. The internet did not crash. Now watch it crash. We got through Kerak and his garrison, and let's close out our poll and see what the new code name is for our corpsman. Let me pop back over here and look at that. At this point, I believe I will close out the poll. And there it is. Our new code name is Painkiller. That was the winner with 65% of the vote. Thanks, everybody.
That's what I voted for.
I'll be putting that in our community tab here in a minute. But definitely appreciated everybody who voted and everybody who's been contributing here in the chat. Always a good time to hang out with everybody. What's coming up next for the lair? We've got some goodies for Thursday. We're going to have a lounge with some comic book fans and some good stuff on the horizon. So
yeah, you get that wrestling talk for Beastie,
yep.
Beastie and Baddies.
Yeah. So keep a check on the community tab. Anything coming up, I'll pop in there, and you know, we're trying to keep the hits a rolling. So glad everybody is enjoying what we're putting out. So we will call it a day, and we'll see you in the very near future. Thank you, Will.
Yep.
Thank you, chat.
Thank you.
Remember, fellas, it is time for action. And I will sign us out. Peace.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.